Hey Earthers! I am so excited to review for you book 3 of the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey, which is ABADDON'S Gate. And in my opinion, this is the best book in the series yet. And as usual, this will be a mostly non-spoiler review. So if you haven't read books 1 or 2, you might be in for some spoils. So gather around the blue light with me, readers, for this episode of iWizard. ABADDON'S Gate was published in 2013, and it won the Locus Award for Best Science Fiction Novel in 2014. And if you're a fan of the TV series, ABADDON'S Gate roughly aligns with season 3 of the show, depending on whose storyline you're following. Like, for example, Holden's storyline only picks up midway through season 3. But some other characters you get throughout season 3, their stories that are told in ABADDON'S Gate. And I'll talk more about them a little bit later. And at the time the novel begins, we're about a year out from the events that took place at the end of Caliban's War, which was book 2. And so at this point, this giant ring has been constructed beyond the orbit of Uranus. So it's really big. It's like 1,000 kilometers wide, and it's far out 2 astronomical units out beyond the orbit of Uranus. And to give you a sense what an astronomical unit or an AU is, the average distance between Earth and the Sun is 1 AU. The term Abaddon, from the title of the novel, comes from the Hebrew Bible. It is a place of destruction or doom, and it also refers to the archangel of the abyss. So essentially, Abaddon's Gate is the gate to hell, or the gate to lost souls. So of course, the ring, right, signifies temptation to sin. And we have a flotilla of Earth and Martian ships around the ring to make sure to kind of keep an eye on each other and also to study the ring and collect data. So no one has entered the ring yet. I'm going to read off some quotes from the book to set the temperature for the state of affairs in this novel. Between Protogen and Mao Kwiatkowski, the order and stability of the solar system had pretty much been dropped in a blender. Eros Station was gone, taken over by an alien technology, and crashed into Venus. Ganymede was producing less than a quarter of its previous food output, leaving every population center in the outer planets relying on backup agricultural sources. The Earth-Mars alliance was the kind of quaint memory someone's grandpa might talk about after too much beer. The good old days, before it all went to hell. Venus was dead. For years after a corrupted Eros station fell through its clouds, all human eyes had turned to that planet, watching as the alien protomolecules struggled in the violence and heat. Crystal towers, kilometers high, rose and fell away. Networks of carbon fibers laced the planet and degraded to nothing. The weapon had meant to hijack simple life on Earth billions of years before. Instead, it had the complex ecosystem of human bodies and the structures to sustain them in the toxic oven of Venus. Maybe it had taken longer to carry out its plan. Maybe having complex life to work with had made things easier. Everything pointed to it being finished with Venus. And all that really mattered was it had launched a self-assembling ring in the emptiness outside the orbit of Uranus that sat there dead as stone. Until now. Let's meet our characters, and just like Caliban's War, Abaddon's Gate has 4 primary points of view throughout the book and a minor character introduced in the prologue. But unlike Caliban's War, all 4 POVs in this book are told from Earthers' perspectives. So let's begin with the prologue. And in the prologue, we meet Mineo Jung Espinosa, and he is an 18-year-old from Ceres. So he is actually a half Belter, half Earther, so he doesn't fit in so good on Ceres. And so to try to kind of gain the affections of the other Belters, he joins this underground society of slingshots. And slingshotting is a really dangerous sport where you build your own like little rickety ship that can really only fit a crash couch, a little bit of oxygen, not a ton of gas, and it's not even running on fusion. It's running on these pellets that are not efficient, so you have to carefully map out your trajectory to go around the orbit of a planet, so using the angular momentum of a planet to actually travel really, really fast and make it your way back without dying. So dangerous sport here. And so he is the first person to enter the ring. Then in the first actual chapter, we open up with James Holden, and Holden is the only consistent character thread that we get throughout all 3 books so far. And he and his crew from the Rocinante have been working as independent contractors, and they're doing really well for themselves. They have made a lot of money. And at the start of this chapter, they are in between jobs, so they are finally taking a much needed vacation where they can have lots of fun, blow off some steam. So they're at Ceres Station at a casino. And Holden is still Holden. He is still known for telling the truth. He's still a bit of an idealist. He's still dating Naomi. But we remember in the last book, he started to get a little bit of cynicism in him. He started to get a little bit of Detective Miller from Leviathan Wakes in him. And for the last year, Holden has been seeing Miller, like seeing some kind of manifestation of him, like a ghost of Miller with all these little blue fireflies and stuff that pop up when Miller appears. Holden is suspecting that Miller is connected to the ring, so Holden wants to stay as far away from the ring as possible. He wants nothing to do with it. Of course, the Rosie's next job falls through. They get in a bit of trouble, and to get out of it, they have to accept a job transporting a documentary crew to the ring. Next up, we meet Carlos C. de Baca, or Bull. And Bull is one of the storylines that we actually do not follow directly in the TV series. As far as I can tell, his narrative is split between Ashford and Kamina Drummer. And also, side note, Drummer still not in the books yet. I'm starting to suspect that Drummer is not in the books and only in the TV series, which makes me a bit sad. But moving on. Bull is about 40 years old, and he has been living off Earth since he was 22. And he's been working with the OPA and Fred Johnson in various capacities over the last several years. And his next job up is on the big massive ship named the Behemoth. And the Behemoth is the new name for the former Nauvoo. So remember that Nauvoo was the generational ship for the Mormons so that they could go travel to the stars over the course of generations. And so the Behemoth has now been cobbled together to be a warship when it wasn't intended to be a warship. So it's this really, really, really massive warship. And Bull is technically qualified to be the captain of the Behemoth, but Fred Johnson assigns him the role of third in command because he is an Earther and doesn't think that the Belters will listen to him. So Bull ends up being the chief security officer, and so he's positioned below the captain, who is Ashford, and the XO, Mikio Pa, and we don't get Pa in the TV series either, and I believe part of Paw's character ends up being absorbed by Drummer as well. Bull is definitely appropriately named for the way that he acts. And he loves to maintain order, and he makes decisions really quickly without talking to anyone about his decisions, like really rash decisions, just to maintain order. In chapter 3, we meet Melba, who is actually Clarissa Mao. Clarissa is Julie Mao's younger sister, and you'll remember Julie from book 1, Leviathan Wakes. She was our prologue POV who ends up getting kidnapped, and she was the first case of the protomolecule infection on Arrow Station. So Clarissa is Julie's younger sister. And when we meet Clarissa, she is obtaining a new identity as Melba Co, because she wants to get on a ship and get over to the ring. She's trying to get to the ring. And she has gotten some expensive work done. She has a military grade gland implants. It's a modified endocrine bundle. So the way it works is she rubs her tongue a couple times counterclockwise on the roof of her mouth, and it shoots her body with adrenaline, so that's gonna lower inhibition and fear, and it makes her super, super strong for like 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes are up, she collapses on the floor in a heap. She's shaking, vomiting, crying, and just utterly vulnerable. So this implant didn't end up ever actually getting used on the military because it would leave the soldiers just too vulnerable afterwards. And so Clarissa is our Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type character. And when she's all hulked out, I really like this quote about her. Melba's scream was deep and vicious and wild. If the id had a throat, it would have sounded like that if the devil spoke. And Clarissa's whole goal is to go to the ring and destroy Holden, because her motivation is to bring honor to her family. So her sister, a little, but mostly her father, who is in prison on Luna. So if you remember, her father is Jules Pierre Mao. Okay, so he was the head of Protogen. The final POV we get is the Reverend Dr. Anushka Volovodov, or Anna. And Anna is a Methodist pastor at St. John's United on Europa. Europa is one of Jupiter's moons. So Anna is Russian, so that would make her an Earther, and her wife Nono is from Uganda. So their extended family live on Earth still. And they have a daughter together, Nami, who is a couple of years old. And Nami is at this point where she has to go to Earth to finish developing. If she doesn't go now, she's never going to be able to visit extended family on Earth because her body won't be able to withstand Earth's gravity. So Anna has this issue where she's known for asking forgiveness rather than for asking permission. And of course, she has accepted a mission to go to the ring. There's like this whole big group of theologists and various ministers and religious peoples and artists who they want to visit the ring to kind of get their perspective on what it is. Anna's now splitting off from her family because Nono and their daughter are going back to Earth, and Anna is going to the ring. And so this is where all the storylines come together, because everyone ends up going to the ring and they end up at some point inside the ring. And the working title for this novel was actually Dandelion Sky. And it comes from Alex, he's one of the Row C crew members, his description of the inside of the ring. Okay, so it looks like a dandelion and burst in the sky, you know, all the dandelion seeds. And within the ring, there are the laws of physics don't apply. They are different. So it's really, really cool. Okay, last thing I'm going to mention as far as characters go. Let's for a moment just tally up redheads in Abaddon's Gate. Okay, so we have Anna, Monica, Sam, Ren. That is 4 redheads in Abaddon's Gate. Let's go ahead and tally up redheads in the Expanse television series. All right, we have 0 redheads. 0. Okay, so Anna, the Reverend, she is actually a redhead in the book. Amos actually calls her red. I thought she was really well cast in the TV show, so yeah, whatever. Monica, the reporter who's doing the documentary, she has auburn hair. Not the case in the TV series. Sam is the mechanic. She is not actually in the TV series, but some things that happen to her are kind of absorbed in Naomi and Drummer's characters. And then lastly, we have Ren. Okay, so that's 4. So lastly, we have Ren, and Ren is a belter, and he ends up kind of being the mentor for Melba at a certain point. They age him up in the TV series, so he has white hair. So maybe he had red hair at one point. I don't know. All right, let's take a look at what I liked. And I absolutely love the fantasy tropes in the book. The ring of power, right? Total fantasies trope. Holden's a farm boy on an adventure. He's being drawn to the ring of power. The ring was built in the series from mass murder. Is it intrinsically evil? What is it? There are deeper philosophical questions, I think, in this book compared to the other books. There are tensions that form around the ring. Should we destroy it? Should we use it? Is it going to be a helpful tool for us? Is it going to just turn against us? We don't understand it, so should we just destroy it? Is it bad? And the other thing I really like about this book is you learn, even though Holden has been in all these, he's like the character that we follow throughout the series, and he's been put in all these unique situations, you find out that he isn't special. Or is he special, right? Like, because he's been in all those situations. But the ring isn't like contacting him because there is something intrinsically special about him. And I think that is really cool. Or maybe that's just something that we're supposed to be confused about right now, and we'll learn otherwise later. And I'm really excited to learn otherwise later if that is the case. And the other thing, and I know a lot of people mention this, but specifically in this book, gravity is so important, and it's done really well. And I love that the authors differentiate between spin gravity and thrust gravity, and really make it clear how important gravity is. So standing on Earth, right? The average gravitational acceleration on Earth is 9.81 meters per second squared. So that's because of the size of Earth's mass. We're getting drawn toward Earth's center of mass, and then the ground pushes up on us with equal and opposite force. So that is our parent weight. And if you ever noticed, if you sit in a car and you hit the gas and start accelerating, you get pushed back against your seat, right? With a force, okay? Beyond what you weigh, because you're accelerating. All right. To think of another way, if you're accelerating toward away from the center of mass on Earth, your apparent weight increases. All right. So you feel heavier when you're riding an elevator. And that's really how thrust gravity works. And so if you are in a spaceship and you are not accelerating, so not accelerating just means you're going at constant velocity. So constant velocity is the same speed in one direction. So you're just keeping a constant velocity. If you're in a spaceship, then you would be weightless. Okay, so that's where we get weightlessness. But then if you are accelerating, okay, you're pushed down against the spaceship, that gives you gravity. Okay, that's thrust gravity. And so if the spaceship is accelerating at 9.81 meters per second squared, which is the average acceleration due to gravity on Earth, then that is 1g. If it's accelerating slower than that, all right, then that is going to be less than 1g. Okay, so that's thrust gravity. And acceleration can be a change in velocity, but it can also be a change in direction. Okay, and so that's where we get spin gravity from. Okay, so one example is like, say you're like on like one of those teacup rides or some kind of ride at an amusement park, because when it's rotating, you're pushed back, right, with force, right, to the outer walls. All right. And so when you get rotation going like that, you get that Coriolis effect, and that generates gravity as well. And so the behemoth in the novel is able to generate spin gravity. So even though it's not accelerating under thrust, all right, it has spin gravity. And this becomes very, very important because when someone sustains injuries, they do not heal the same way if there's not gravity, right? Blood pools, different fluids pool, and they don't clear out. Nothing heals the way it's supposed to. So gravity becomes very, very, very important. And it's extremely important that the behemoth has spin gravity. Another thing that I really like is the phrase matching vector. So when people are floating around at 0G and they're if you're trying to follow someone, the authors say that they're matching vector. So you're kind of going the same direction at the same rate following someone. So they're matching vector instead of just saying following. I thought it was cute. I liked it. And this book, the prose is just so much better than the first two books, and the characters feel more real. So those are some of my likes. And I've included a link below if you want to learn more about thrust and spin gravity. So what I didn't like, and once again, we got some similar internal thoughts for different characters. So last book, Jules Pierre Mao was described as being so powerful that he didn't have his hairline corrected. All right, yeah, fine. He was so powerful that he was fine with his receding hairline. And a couple people thought this about him, including Avasarala. But now Clarissa has like a very similar thought when she is visiting Travin, who is the guy that is selling her new identity as Melba, that she thinks, oh, he has bad teeth, but he didn't have them corrected because he's super powerful and he has lots of money. But at this point, like 3 different POVs have had this type of thought. And also, I don't know how legit that thought is there because, like, he's a belter, this guy. I think he was a belter. If he had uncorrected teeth, couldn't that also just mean he was poor growing up and couldn't correct them? Anyway. And then again, with the strange lizard thing. Like, both Holden and Bobby had this thought about, like, a lizard kind of controlling their subconscious and, like, dictating where they go in their heads in last book. And I thought, that's weird, and 2 characters thought that. That's kind of a strange thing. The lizard came back, and the lizard was acting at the base of Anna's spine, dictating where she went, and I thought that was kind of strange. Another thing is the line 5x5, which I'm still going to attribute to Faith the Vampire Slayer from Buffy, because I want to. I don't know if that's where it came from. But I was so excited when Alex said it in Leviathan Wakes. And then Holden said it again, which, okay, fine. Holden has been on the Rosie with Alex for a while now. That makes sense. They can pick up things for each other. But some random person named JoJo also said 5x5 in this book. And it's like, okay, they're getting a little too much on that, I think. And another thing is in the opening chapter when Holden and Naomi and Amos and Alex, so the Grossi crew members, are at the casino on Ceres, Holden orders a $1,200 bottle of real scotch from Isla. And then the crew starts taking shots of this scotch. Do you know how rare that is to have scotch in the asteroid belt, like real scotch? And they're taking shots of it? Why aren't they sipping it and enjoying it? Take shots of something, some well thing, something else. So that just kind of stressed me out. I was like, no, enjoy it, please. Anyway, and another thing has to do with Holden and Naomi. They have been boyfriend and girlfriend for a while now, like years. And in this book, it has only just just now occurred to Holden that maybe Naomi has some skeletons in her closet because she was also on the Canterbury, that ice hauler that was filled with outcasts, like people running away from things, people running away from their pasts. And Naomi is super talented, and it only has just occurred to him now that maybe she was running away from something too, and he hasn't ever talked to her about this. Why don't they communicate? They've been dating for years. I just don't understand how like the crew members still know so little about each other. Where is the communication? I want to know more about the crew members, and I just really wish I could get a little more of Naomi. Like she's great, and like she seems like very like empathetic to Holden all the time, but like we don't get that much of her aside from that. Lastly, the prose was excellent for most of the book. When we got to the last 100 pages or so, I started to notice that the prose was a little less careful, which is fine because, like, stuff is moving faster, the plot is really picking up, people are reading faster, you miss more. But I also, like, not looking for it, noticed, like, 3 typos, there were some phrases that were reused, and the mask thing. Okay, the mask thing is really getting to me now. Like, I really thought the using mask to like describe facial expressions was creative, and it's been used so many times now that if they just need to stop using it for a while. And another thing was I kept picking up companionable silence in like a few different parts, and that stuck out to me as well. So these certain turns of phrase and this way of describing things that stick out when they're used too close to each other, just please be more careful. Like the prose was so lovely for most of the book. Okay, here's my rating. Okay, story, I rated a 9.5 out of 10. I loved the big ideas. It was much deeper philosophically than the first 2 books. I love the concept of the ring and what it means, and how we are at this point in human history where man is going to be able to start expanding out to the stars. For characters, I rated it a 9 out of 10 because I feel like it's better than before. Holden, I feel like, is finally becoming a person. He's getting deeper. He's thinking about his past more. He's thinking about Naomi a little more, which is nice considering that's his girlfriend. And so I feel like Holden is finally getting some depth. Yay! I'm just a little sad that we don't get to follow multiple character storylines throughout like we do in the TV series. We get new characters each time, which takes a little bit to get used to them. And it just would be really nice to like at least follow someone else throughout as well. The prose, I rated a 9 out of 10. It was the best prose yet. There were so many parts that I just wanted to like quote and read back off to you here, but like I'd run out of time, and you don't want to listen to me quote everything from the book. You should just read the book. But I thought the prose was great and more thoughtful even than the first 2. Originality, 10 out of 10. I just love the concept once again in this story. For world building, I rated it a 10 out of 10 as well. Just the details are really great with the different types of gravity and healing under the different types of gravity, and just what it was like inside the ring. And having characters again with all these different backgrounds, even though they were all Earthers, they were from different places on Earth and had all these different experiences to bring to the book. And I just thought it was fantastic. So overall, I rate Abaddon's Gate 9.5 out of 10. So thank you so much for joining me in this review, and please be sure to subscribe and hit the notifications button if you want to continue to follow Jordan in my reviews. And I'm going to keep on going with my journey through reading all the Expanse books and novellas and short stories. So I'll see you next time. Bye!